Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Eva and today I am doing a bit of a haul. I'm gonna probably insert different clips so you can have like, it's gonna be like different clips from different weeks. And yeah, that's it. I have a big box from Sapphire. Sapphire does daily deals and once a month I allow myself to go on Sapphire and allow myself, if there is a deal, to purchase stuff, but I do that only once a month because it's very dangerous. But I've got a couple of things that I bought used and just two things I bought from Amazon that I wanted to show you. They're dropping. So without further ado, and I'm breathless because I had to carry the box and the books up the stairs to come in the studio to film. So anyway, let's start with a couple of, well, I purchased one manga used because it was in brand new conditions, and this is Assassination Classroom. All I know is about this classroom trying to kill their teacher. I know that it's a quite a lengthy series. I don't know how many volumes are out. Let me know if you've read these. I'm keeping now these because I am so in the middle of such a, so many series that I don't know if I want to try and start a new series and a new manga series. But on the other side, I think on certain websites like Vinted or stuff like that, you can find people selling the whole series for an affordable price compared, to buy them new and in very good conditions. These came in very great conditions, and so I might give it a try, see if I like it, and either keep it or get rid of it, or maybe make a note to purchase the whole series when I can. So I'm hesitant because I am tempted to try the first volume and see if I like it enough to then put this on my radar, but we will see. So Assassination Classroom is a new manga series, and the rest I've got are, so let's have the other one second-handed because I refuse to pay more than £3 for this, is massive last book in the Dark Artifices series by Cassandra Clare. Queen of Air and Darkness is book number 3 and the last one in the series. In my March wrap-up I talked about my issues with book number 2, and this book is not appreciated by the majority of people, so I am dreading having to read these. Initially I didn't know if I want to purchase these, and I definitely didn't want to spend a lot of pounds, but because I got this for very cheap, I was like, listen, it's in good condition, it's very cheap, I can read it and then decide what to do with the whole series. But yeah, I've got these. Ooh, that's massive. And then I've got this from Amazon, Hunting Adeline. Listen, since last year, thank you to Fairy Loot, I must say, I did appreciate a few romantic fantasy. I had stopped for a couple of years, a few years back, to read any romantic fantasy, or I don't read romance, so the only time I read romance is mostly with fantasy. But my passion got reignited recently, sparked again, and I've heard conflicting things about these. I mean, people that have recommended some of my favorite toxic, problematic romantic fantasy to me in the past, of like videos where I, booktubers I follow, they really liked this series, and so I'm tempted to read this and see what I think about it. Now let me premise this: when it comes down to problematic romantic fantasy, I am okay with it because it's a fantasy world. There are people with powers, there are people that will never ever exist. I don't condone, though, majority of the things that happen in here, but because it's a fantasy, it's a fantasy. It's in the title, right? It's a fantasy book. It doesn't really exist. It's fictional. And it's fictional to a point that, again, it happens in a world that it's not ours. So I can really suspend belief, and I'm way more open-minded than I would be with, like, I don't know, for example, I'm more against mafia romance that are rooted, in every day world than a romantic fantasy like this. Now this I'm a bit hesitant though, because this is a kind of a stalker situation where she is the main protagonist, Adeline. She has the power to manipulate emotions, yet she can't manipulate his. And he is this entity, is this entity that becomes obsessed with her and starts stalking her. Now let's see how it goes, because when you mention stalking, I can hear my throat closing. So let's see how this is handled. Let's see how this is done. We will see. It might happen like Gothicana, which is one of my worst books I've ever read in my whole life, which is a dark romance that I despised. And I had a whole review of it. And then, very excitingly, we think I'm more excited to read in this small bunch is Shogun. So Shogun, it's a historical novel and it's historical fiction, and it's basically you follow these Major John Blackthorns with shipwrecked on Japan, and I think he's from Portugal, and you follow him becoming a samurai. There is a TV show on Disney that I really want to watch, and I want to read the book first of all because I heard amazing things about the book, and I do love historical fiction, although I don't read many of those. So Shogun, I'm gonna start with probably very soon. I'm just so curious to read these, and of course I want to read the book before I watch the TV show or the movie. That's always the rule, right? So this is the box I've got from Sapphire. We're gonna open it. In here I'm mostly focused on finishing manga series. So the daily deals, they have a lot of books, which again sometimes I purchase books because they are in the daily deals, and there were a couple that I wanted to purchase. But also I am trying nowadays to binge read manga series, so because I'm in the middle of a million of them, I lose points of the plot too often because I'm trying to read too many things at a time. So I'm focusing more on trying to binge read a whole manga series, and maybe they'll like do a review at the end of the whole series, reviewing the whole series, rather than reviewing chapter or like volume by volume. So in these I focus on one manga series specifically. I'll show you how it looks like. Yeah, it looks like these. I think it's Sapphire by now. I keep purchasing from you at least once a month, so I'm a good customer of theirs. Look at these. I'm gonna keep this. This actually looks cool. Oh, my child is gonna have. Oh look, they gave me like so many. They have like the coolest. Look at these. This is perfect for Shogun. I'll show you just the ones I have not showed you before because some are repetitive. Like this. I don't think they show you this, like just a couple. But yeah, they give me a lot of these, which I love, guys. Thank you so much. I always use them. There's nothing useful as a bookmark, and this is what it looks like. Oh, actually now I remember what I purchased. So I did purchase a few books. Let's open them up. Oh, today I'm filming this with Easter, and I didn't get chocolate because I am allergic to butter, so I can't eat most chocolate, but I get books, so that's fine when I'm filming this Easter, this first clip. So first of all, I can see in here Oathbringer. This is book 3, but it's part 1 of book 3, and you might remember in the last haul that I purchased, it's actually down here, I purchased part 2. So now I of course saw part 1 and I jumped on it. We know what this is. It's very famous series by Sanderson, and I can't be bothered now to put it back, so you're gonna be here for a second. Well, you don't need a synopsis of a, of a Stormlight Archive, do you? The other book I purchased, which is actually an hardcover, and it was, for the hardcover, it was a good price, is The Serpent, The Wings of Night. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is book number 1 in the Crown of Nyaxia, and it's a vampire romance. That's all I know. It's about this girl that she's not a vampire, but she's raised by vampires, and eventually she starts to enter this competition that in theory is just for vampires. I'm not reading the synopsis, so I'm just going through what people told in their videos, what I remember from other people's videos. So basically this girl enters this competition that's supposedly just for vampires, but she wants to give it a try, and then she falls in love with a vampire within the competition. And yeah, I'll give you a better synopsis once I've read it properly, but yeah, it's a vampire romance, it's a dark romance, and as you might have heard me say a second ago, I'm more into those fantasy ones nowadays. Now, book-wise, I believe that's it. So I just purchased those 2 books. Oh no, that's silly of me saying that. I'll get to other books in a second. I purchased a couple of books in a series, but then I purchased just 1 volume of Dorodoro, volume 16, because it was in their discount section and was just a couple of pounds cheaper. And this is Dorodoro. And what I'm gonna do with Dorodoro, though, I'm gonna pause until I can purchase all the other volumes and then binge read it from volume 16 onwards. I think that's my plan. And I'm gonna show you some of the art if I can, without spoiling anything. Don't read the dialogue because you don't wanna be spoiled. But yeah, purchasing these. And the series I really focused on, the other manga series I really focused on is the Hell Paradise. Now, the only volume that was out of stock is volume 11, and I don't want to purchase volume 11 for £1,000,000 because I know that it's going to get reprinted. So at the moment, I can't right this moment binge read this and finish it, but I've got all the other volumes. So I got in this series, I got volume, let me start in order. So I got volume 8, I'm currently reading, and then I got volume 9. I need to change my camera battery, guys. I'll be back in a second. I'm back. And then, so volume 9, volume 10 purchased. Volume 11 wasn't available, so I'm gonna keep having a look out. You might find these at any point in any of the other clips in this haul. Volume 12. These are 13 volumes in total manga. And volume 13, which is the last one. Okay, so yeah, I need to purchase volume 11 and then I'll be done with the series. I can binge read it, and this is Hell Paradise, a 13 volume series. It's about this boy at the beginning, Gabimaru. It becomes, you know, you follow different point of views, but he's in theory the main protagonist, and he is a prisoner and he's sent to this island to find the elixir of eternal life. And he's sent with a bunch of other convicts that are given a choice to either being put to death or go to the island and try to find the elixir, and if they do find this elixir and come back with it to the shogun, they'll be spared their life and be free. The thing is that no one has ever come back from the island alive, and this is a grimdark fantasy series. It's full of monsters, and also is this big question at the beginning of what's the island, what's going on there, what is this elixir of eternal life, and blah blah blah. Quite enjoy this part and I want to finish it. I really like the monsters in this. And the last thing in the box is the 2 books left in the series. So I purchased a couple of books in this series that I wanted to continue on. I don't know which one is book number 2. Listen, these covers are gorgeous. I've got Kingdom of the Flesh and Fire. Now there are different dimension than book number 1, which is a bit of a problem, but we will see what I'm gonna do with that. And then I've got The Crown of Gilded Bones. This is a series by Armentrout. It's a romantic dark romance fantasy by Armentrout. Armentrout writes some of my favorite romances in fantasy. The more easy to read, the more compelling to read. Now my only problem is, what do I do with this? Because they don't match. Do they? And this is a bit of a problem, and I do love the bigger editions, so we will see what I'm gonna do, because I might have to sell my copy of these and purchase this in a bigger format. This is book number 2 and 3. I think the whole series is 6. 6. It's gonna be 6 books in total, I believe. And in the first book, which I happen to have here because I just filmed my wrap up, and the first book you follow Poppy. She's the maiden for this kingdom that's been now basically cursed with vampires, creature roaming around, so people live in walled cities. And Poppy, our main protagonist, she's sort of a nun, if you want. She's a special nun, though she is the maiden, so she can't be seen or touched by anybody else. No one can see her face, for example, so she goes around with a veil. And she is now spending her days a countess, Casso, waiting to come of age to ascend and become kind of a proper saint for her people. And she's been chosen fundamentally because she has been attacked by vampires. They're not called vampires, but they're vampires. She's been attacked and survived without turning, because usually people would turn and become vampires. And if they're bitten or scratched, or whether it's the case. So she hasn't, and because of that, she has got into this kind of almost godhood state. And you follow her and her romance with one of her guards. The first book ended up on a cliffhanger. The world building is not the best. It is kind of predictable, but the chemistry between these 2 characters and the hate to I want you but still hate you thing, it's very compelling and entertaining, and I've been loving it. It's been like one of a kind of guilty pleasure series, juicy series. So yeah, I have purchased book number 2, which book number 3, I really like the cover, but can we appreciate the cover of book number 2. I'm obsessed with this. Like, it feels like, I don't know, it really comes to life. Anyway, up to the next clip. I was actually planning to have more clips to this haul, but I actually think I'm gonna film the second part of the haul and then just upload it, because I am conscious that my uploading has been very erratic lately with everything going on. So I think a haul is something that some people enjoy, and I got enough stuff in front of me to justify just putting 2 clips in this haul. So I, in the last couple of weeks, have been kind of going around London a bit more, just because I had family over, so of course we would, you know, go around a bit more, and I would never miss an opportunity to enter a charity shop. And I found a couple of books, well, more than a couple of books that I ended up purchasing, and one other shop had like 2 new books for £7, and that was a very good deal. So I found a couple of deals, a bit of, you know, charity shop findings, and I got 10 books to go through with you today. The first part is non-fiction. I think a lot of the times when you go to charity shops, you got a good choice of non-fiction books, and the other part is just general fiction, mostly fantasy, that I found. So yeah, let's do that. Let's go through the rest of these monthly haul at this point. These are things I accumulated in the last couple of months, or like a month and a half. Okay, so for the non-fiction pile, actually this is a charity shop finding, and it's Van Gogh's Year, the true story. I know nothing about Van Gogh. I have been to museums and seen his art firsthand, if you want, and I was always, though, a bit fascinated by his story and the story of his tormented artist and his end. I think in this book the author just tells us about, you know, Van Gogh biography, and I am very curious to know more about him. I'm not the most artistic person. I didn't study art, particularly in school, apart from, you know, the normal lessons I usually get. But yeah, curious to know a bit more, especially because, again, he has a bit of a tormented story, and yeah, who doesn't like a tormented artist, right? Okay, so there's a bit of a story behind the next one. So the next one I found in a shop half price, and I had heard a couple of reviewers really praising these, and because it's a psychology book, if you want, in a sense, I was curious to read it for myself. It's a bit of a chunker, but this is The Myth of Normal: Illness, Health and Healing in a Toxic Culture. So it explains how, while it's true that mental health diagnoses and stuff like that are on the rise overall, the author looks back at why that might be the case and why this may be related to modern society, and you know, the struggles with modern society and this historical period we found ourselves in, kind of current period we found ourselves in. It's contributing to probably us, you know, and our mental health deteriorating, or maybe just being more diagnosed than it used to be. I don't know, I've not read this, I'll figure it out. Now, I do have some issues though with the, not issues, but fun fact is I've seen a couple of videos by Mate, the author of this book, who's a doctor, and I disagreed with some of the things he was saying. So in hindsight, I don't know if I would have picked this up if I knew who had written it. Maybe I would have listened to the audiobook or whatever and just kind of, you know, tested the water a bit before. But I do think that even if I don't necessarily agree on everything, I can still learn, I can still take away what I need to take away, and no, I don't have to agree with everything he's saying, if that's the case, as if it was with the videos I watched of him. So we will see. Maybe it's gonna be an eye-opener, maybe it's gonna be a bit of a hit and a miss. I'll figure it out. Then I've got The Doctor of Hiroshima. This is the story of this doctor who worked in this hospital less than a mile away from Hiroshima when the atomic bomb was dropped, and you kind of follow him surviving that and then having to help people that survived the initial bombing, and having then to kind of help them heal, and also finding himself confronted with physical symptoms and illnesses that he had never seen before, and probably the whole medical community had never seen before, because up until that point, no one exactly knew what radiation would do to a human body. So I'm very curious about these. I have just recently rewatched Oppenheimer. It's just that it's a topic that really interests me. It's a historical period that I found so dreadful, and yet on a psychological point of view or on a historical point of view, for quite fascinating to read about and learn more about. So when I saw these in a charity shop, I picked it up. And the last two non-fiction I actually found in this shop, there was like, you buy 2 books for £7, new books, which is a very good deal these days. And first of all, I got The Ruin of All Witches, Life and Death in the New World. And so there is no synopsis behind these books. All I know probably is looking at how witchcraft and witches were treated in the New World, and I don't know, persecution, or just their costumes, how they used to do their, you know, rituals, stuff like that. I have no idea if it's more on the side of a persecution or just explaining how witchcraft worked in the New World. I'll figure out once I read it. And on the same kind of note, I've got The Witches, Salem 1692. And this is the story of a town in Massachusetts that became the very infamous or famous Salem, and how, you know, it came about that I think 19 women were hanged eventually, and they probably follow the trials, where it started and where eventually it led after the women were hanged. Again, I do expect just a very kind of in-depth view of the Salem witch trials. Okay, so let's now move to a fiction. I've got Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I had read another book by her and I found myself quite in the middle. I didn't love it to bits, but I didn't dislike it. So this has been all over the place, and all I know, it's about a vampire marrying a werewolf due to convenience. It was an arranged marriage and they need to kind of get along for the sake of their people. I don't know anything else about these. I'm not going to read the synopsis. I was genuinely curious to pick this up because people keep saying, oh, this involves, like, I think it's a sexual practice, which I don't know what it is, and I'm assuming it's something to do with him being a wolf, but I don't know. Listen, I don't know what to expect. Maybe I'm just rambling at this point of the evening. It's 7 p.m. while I'm filming this, but I got curious to understand what everybody was talking about when reviewing this book, because everybody who reviews this book goes, oh, and then they did that, and I was like, what is that? And I refused to Google it because, I don't know, I just felt like God only knows what's gonna come out if I Google that. But maybe it's nothing, maybe it's all in my head. So yeah, it's a silly reason to pick up a book, but also I've heard great things about the book. I'm not sure I've read anything about her, because if she's the one who wrote The Love Hypothesis, which I've not read that one. So maybe I'm confusing it with another author. Listen, it's been a long day. It is what it is. Then I picked up book number 2 in the Expenses series. This is Caliban's War. I've heard amazing things about these. The sequel, a lot of people preferred the second book to the first one, and the first one was already quite enjoyable for me. I really enjoyed my time and with Holden and with Miles. I don't know if they are back. I don't know if we've probably just follow Holden, or maybe it's another point of view presented to us. We will see. I have no idea, but I'm curious to continue on with this epic space opera where humans have left, no, they not have left Earth, but they actually colonized the whole entire solar system, and now they are, you know, trying to co-live in the solar system, and things are not going as smoothly as, I mean, you can imagine things are not going as smoothly, can you? It's humans after all. And then a couple of books I don't know much about at all is it's gonna be my first Bernard Cornwell, and this is Harlequin. The Grail Quest. So I think this is the start of a series by him, which is not his most popular series, or maybe it is, I have no idea. All I know is probably has to do with the English fighting the French, and you got main protagonist that wants to avenge his father, who I believe died during this conflict with France, but also he's on the quest of finding the Grail. So I think it's a mix of historical period, there's some definitely religion because of the Grail, and knights and quests and fighting and stuff like that. I've never read one of his, and I've heard people reviewing that, and I found this in a charity shop for 50p, and I was just like, listen, because it's the first in a series, I think it's calling to me, and I do generally enjoy historical fiction. So let's see, if I like his writing, if I like the story, then it should be alright. Okay, so got couple of more things left. Now this next one is Dean Koontz Forever Odd. This is the international bestseller, but it's book number 2 in a series, so I need to reach out. Sorry, I got parrots outside the window making such a noise, but they're so lovely. Digression. Anyway, the first book, it's called Odd Thomas. So this is about this guy Thomas, and he lives in this kind of deserted town in the desert, and he works in a diner. He's got a lovely girlfriend, but he also has some weird powers where he can kind of communicate with the dead, and he can kind of predict when someone might be dying. And in this case, he predicted that on the 14th of August, a tragedy will strike. There is a killer on the loose, a very weird guy, that it's up to no good, and it's up to Thomas with his weird powers having to kind of try and fix the situation, because I believe the novel starts, or soon we'll get around to the 14th of August when he knows the tragedy is about to happen. And I don't know what to expect. Dean Koontz, I love his writing. I just generally love his writing. He wrote some of, one of the best books that I've ever read. Thriller, when it comes down to thriller, suspense. But then another series by him, I just couldn't read book number 2 because the plot was too absurd. So I don't know how I feel about these. The fact that it's the international bestseller, though, series, it gives me a bit more hope that it's potentially one of the series by him that I will actually enjoy. I will try and find the first book, maybe used, and read it and see how I feel about it. And if so, I got the hardcover of the second book. And this book was published eons ago, wasn't it? Okay, I think it's 2005. Okay, it's not, for me it's not that old, but for other people it's probably quite old. And the last one is probably the oldest book I'm gonna haul, and I've hauled in a while, but I found this randomly in the charity shop, and I was like, listen, it's just so campy, I don't know, something called me. This is horror stories, and the authors of these horror stories are Roald Dahl, Saki, I don't know who he is, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now when I was 16, probably 17, I read the whole Sherlock Holmes collection by Doyle. Like, I read it all, and I loved it. I loved it back in the days. So I don't know though what to expect in terms of horror. It's a collection of short stories which are not my cup of tea. However, just the way this book looks, I just felt like I need to put it on my horror shelf. And do I expect the stories to be terrifying or to be like the kind of horror I'm used to these days? No, but that's fine. I will hopefully be able to put these in the timeline that it sits in and appreciate it for what it was. And maybe also because it's such an old book, it can also be refreshing because it will have a different language. It will probably have different kind of horror elements that I might be used to read nowadays. Probably less graphic, but I'm okay with that, and I'm actually looking forward to picking these up, maybe doing like spooky season or something, or maybe randomly. So yeah, I'm in love with this cover. It's just so campy. Remind me of people, like sometimes I spend hours looking at people collecting like very vintage horror books. I love how they look, and I would love to have a space for it. And before I go, guys, I'm going to show you also the Funko Pop I got myself the other day. I did not purchase a Funko Pop in eons, but there was this kind of, it's a Dungeons and Dragons exclusive from 2023 Comic-Con, something we saw it, and I just love how it looks, just like it's stuck in a cube. I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you hauled recently. Is anything of these things you've read, and you can kind of, you know, tell me what you thought about them. No spoilers. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe, join the small community, and I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Ciao.